Good evening, everyone. Call the meeting to order for our committee of the whole for Monday, February the 11th. Welcome. As a result of some questions and some observations by some council members, we have asked our consultant, Suzanne Denbak, to come back and present to all of council to put all the pieces together to show you what this puzzle is going to look like in the future and answer any questions. We have a tight schedule for Suzanne. We've allotted an hour, and I'm sure we can do it. So, Suzanne, welcome.
Thank you.
The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here tonight with you. Thank you for asking me back. I have a bit of a presentation for you, but I would certainly encourage you at any point, if you have questions and you'd like to keep it more dynamic, we can do it that way, or I can take all your questions at the end of the presentation, whatever you prefer. So what I thought I would cover for you is just a little bit of background about what got us to this point in Hope, Cascades, and Canyons with regard to the MRD or the Municipal Regional District Tax, the timeline to today, and then the timeline looking forward as well, because we're still in the middle of a process to activate the MRDT and have the funds begin to flow. I'd like to share with you the governance model that's been established here in Hope, Cascades, and Canyons, and then talk about the tourism strategy highlights, because we have developed a 5-year tourism strategy, which was the basis for the discussions with tourism stakeholders to secure their support to begin collecting 2% MRDT. And then we should have time for additional questions, anything we haven't covered through the presentation. So a little bit of background first. Why now? So Hope, Cascades, and Canyon, and the District of Hope in particular, had a tourism strategy. It had a life from 2008 to 2013. And many of the recommendations in that strategy have been implemented. But it's clear that the businesses, the tourism businesses in Hope, Cascades, and Canyons are still very heavily dependent on summer season business. There's a very strong summer peak, and then a lot of the businesses struggle for the rest of the year. So Advantage Hope recognized that as well, and it was part of the economic development plan that was conceived to address the opportunity to grow tourism revenues on a year-round basis. The other thing that's changed since that 2008 launch of that 5-year tourism strategy is a significant rebound in tourism markets. So the climate is very different from 2008. Many of you will recall that that was a very steep drop-off in visitation and lots of struggles for tourism businesses. But it's rebounded. There's been tourism growth throughout the province for many years in a row now. So there are some clear opportunities for Hope, Cascades, and Canyons, and in particular the businesses here in Hope, to lengthen stay and grow that year-round visitation. And also in that, since 2008, here we are 11 years later, 2019, your neighboring destinations that have been collecting MRDT, they have seen those funds grow. So they have been successfully marketing themselves now for an additional 10-year window. In that same period of time as well, the nature of destination marketing has changed. So we've gone from a marketing environment where 20 years ago we used to take a full-page ad out in a travel magazine or get some editorial coverage. It's such a vastly different world now. It was definitely time to update that tourism strategy. Now we see the visitors themselves are, if not the most, certainly one of the most important pieces or tools in the marketing toolbox. And what visitors have to say about their experience is a far more effective tool than the ads and promotions that we do for ourselves. So we needed new strategies to make visitors our ambassadors and to offer those remarkable experiences so that we get the favorable referrals. We see third-party platforms becoming increasingly powerful. Facebook, TripAdvisor, Twitter, Instagram, they are all dominating now in information delivery. And online travel agencies, and their market share is growing. So a very different distribution model as well. So much has changed since that last tourism strategy. And our partners have changed too. So Destination BC as a significant senior marketing partner, they have rebranded, they have created a new provincial strategy, and they are all about leveraging, aligning, and amplifying. So again, in this new strategy, it was important to find ways to align with those marketing partners and participate as fully as we could in things like the open pool applications that occur every November 30th, where Destination BC will match funds So if you put in $20,000 and they approve you, you have a $40,000 campaign. You put in $58,000 and they approve you, you have a $116,000 campaign. So it was very, very apparent to Advantage Hope that it was time to update that plan and to have the resources in place to speak to the target markets in this new way that tourism marketing, destination marketing is now requiring us to do in order to be successful. So back in the spring of 2017, so almost 2 years ago now, it was in the April-May timeframe, Advantage Hope asked me to come out and we ran a series of 3 workshops. They were advertised publicly, they were open to anyone that wanted to come out. We had about 50 participants over the course of those 3 workshops. From a really wide range, we had some motel properties, we had retail, we had just residents at large participate in that planning process. And over the course of the 3 workshops, we worked through a series of questions. And the participants provided input into a tourism vision, a mission, some measurable objectives. We looked at our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We identified the target markets and then identified key strategies and tactics. But at the conclusion of those 3 workshops, it was very, very apparent that lack of sustainable funding was one of the most significant hurdles. So we knew what we needed to do. We had a vision, we had objectives, we had strategies and tactics, but that sustainable funding to enable us to implement this vision and the tactics was not in place. So that was the impetus to, once again, attempt to secure support for the municipal regional district tax. So in the fall of that year, the fall of 2017, we began the process of securing support from the accommodation sector from the MRDT at a 2% level. You can now go as high as 3%, but because this was new for Hope, 2% was felt to be a more comfortable level to begin. Now that runs for a 5-year window. If you have support, you can change that to 3% through the 5-year window, or you can wait to the end of the 5 years and then move to 3%, or you can keep it at 2%. Right now we decided to proceed at 2% because that was kind of the comfort level of the accommodation sector, that they were willing to step in at a 2% level. Now, the other thing that was important in this process, Advantage Hope had run, commission and asked me to come and facilitate the workshops and had worked alongside with me to start securing the support for the MRDT. And Advantage Hope had historically managed what was more of a sort of voluntary marketing cooperative of Hope, Cascades, and Canyons. So Manning Park, Yale, some folks, if you went up to Hell's Gate and Tukwim, sort of up to Boston Bar. So they had already had relationships in place to craft this sort of marketing catchment. And so they were identified as the eligible entity, and that eligible entity in the legislation is the body that receives the MRDT funds and has the fiduciary responsibility for spending them in accordance with the plans that are approved by the board and submitted to both Destination BC and the Ministry of Finance. But it was also recognized that if Advantage Hope was to be the eligible entity, and we'll spend a little more time on this when we look at the governance model, that Advantage Hope as an economic development society didn't necessarily have all of the tourism expertise at its board table. So it would be important that they be supported by a tourism advisory committee that would provide very sort of on-the-ground, frontline knowledge of tourism marketing and the tourism marketplace to be able to make recommendations to the board of Advantage Hope on how best to spend those marketing dollars that were collected. So the catchment, let me just spend a moment on the catchment itself, because it is more than the District of Hope. It is also areas A, B, and D of the Fraser Valley Regional District, so that takes us out to Yale, up to Boston Bar, it takes us out to Bridal Falls, and then it's also area H of the Okanagan-Similkameen Regional District, which captures Manning Park. That was the voluntary marketing cooperative that had been in place for a few years. That was the catchment that they were working in, because that created enough depth and density of visitor experiences to make a destination. So you had attractions, you had accommodation, you had retail in this catchment. And for purposes of establishing the MRDT, you can take a map and draw a line around any catchment that makes sense as long as it conforms with local or regional government boundaries. So as long as we were taking the whole of areas A, B, and D, you can't cut an area of a regional district in half and say that's your catchment, you take the whole area. So that was the logic to have the District of Hope and those areas of the two regional districts. They create the entirety of a visitor experience, and there's a lot of similarities in terms of the outdoor offerings that are there, the history, the culture, the heritage of the area. So it all created an integral visitor experience that would warrant multi-night stays, because that was, when we look at the objectives, that was one of the clear objectives of the tourism plan, is we don't want people passing through for an hour or 2 hours or just gassing up and grabbing some groceries, or even staying one night. We want them to stay multi-nights, 2, 3, 4, 5 nights. Let's make this their base for exploring all of both Cascades and Canyons. There is enough to do here to warrant those multi-night stays. That's not yet understood in the marketplace. There is still some perception that you just kind of pass through on your way somewhere else. And that's part of the core work of the marketing strategy, is to change that perception and build awareness of this incredible place as a multi-night destination. So that's some of the logic for why that catchment was structured the way it was. It's already a group that was working together, kind of on an ad hoc, random, never quite sure how much funds would be in place, made sense from a visitor perspective, and willing to work together and identify Advantage Hope as the eligible entity to administer and execute the marketing plan on their collective behalf. So having identified that catchment, we also then had to build support for the municipal regional district tax. You have to have the accommodation sector sign a petition. And the way the petition works is properties that have 4 or more rooms in nightly rentals. So if you are renting for more than 29 days, I have to check that. But a longer term rental, you're not collecting PST, you would not collect MRDT once it was activated. So short-term rentals, 4 or more rooms, have to sign a petition to say that yes, Advantage Hope is the eligible entity, it's at the 2% level, and I support the activation of this. So in the catchment, as we defined it, there were 29 properties that had 4 or more rooms, 626 rooms in total. And the petition works in 2 ways. You have to have both the majority of rooms and the majority of properties. And the reason they do that, the legislation, I think, conceived of a scenario where one extremely large property, if it was just based on majority of rooms, you could maybe have one very large property hold the day. And so they wanted majority of rooms and majority of properties. So we had our list, and we went out and actively met and sat down and answered questions about how this might work. So this is fall of 2017, now moving to fall of 2018. We were out gathering signatures on that petition of support, moving towards the majority. You need 51% of rooms, 51% of properties. Then as of October 1st, the legislation changed. And it expanded to be applied to smaller properties as well, which was always a concern. And in my perspective, having consulted in this area for many, many years, I think it really leveled the playing field somewhat. So smaller properties, even if they have less than 4 rooms, they now also have to collect MRDT. There are a couple little financial hurdles. Their annual revenue needs to be greater than $2,000 or $2,500, so they need to be somewhat committed to it as a business, rather than just, you know, an idle rental or two that got them less than $2,500 a year. So they started, as of October 1st, MRDT would apply to them as well, but it didn't change the nature of the petition. The petition still focused on properties having 4 or more rooms. So those were the target signatures that we were gathering. And we did secure that majority in November of 2018. And so then, because it had taken a full year to get the majority and lots of conversations, We wanted to make sure everyone was still comfortable with the 5-year strategy. We sent that back out to all the proposed MRDT collectors, asked them if they had any final comments. We established the Tourism Advisory Committee. There was an ad in the paper and folks submitted their interest and their qualifications. That TAC in the terms of reference of the Tourism Advisory Committee to support the Board of Advantage Hope as they manage these funds on behalf of all the tourism businesses has been established. We've met with them. They've reviewed the 5-year plan and the 1-year tactical plan, which is far more detailed. And those are requirements of the Ministry of Finance and Destination BC. If you go back 20 years ago, it was a little bit of the Wild West with MRDT. There wasn't a lot of oversight on how the money is spent, but these days you have to have a 5-year plan and a 5-year strategic plan. The format is laid out by Destination BC. They want to see how it aligns with the province's own brand and the work that they're doing. And then the year 1 tactical plan, that gets submitted every year, and it is in far more detail. It is a marketing plan, so there's strategies and tactics and budgets. You submit that to Destination BC, and then at the end of that year, you report against that. So you're then held accountable for what you said you were going to do in that 12-month window, and you submit the plan for the next 12 months. So there's quite a bit of oversight that will be required, and that will be part of Advantage Hope's responsibility as the eligible entity to do that paperwork on an annual basis, to report out on what they said they were going to do, and then advise what the next 12 months looks like. The MRDT submission package also included the letter of support that we received from the District of Hope the last time I was out here to see you. And we received letters of support from the 2 regional districts as well. So that's part of the package that goes first to Destination BC and then onwards to the Ministry of Finance. And then that gets reviewed. So that's in the queue now with Destination BC. They are reviewing the entire application. It's all in play. There is a 6 to 9 month review process that leads to an order in council in the provincial legislature. So unfortunately, that is just Victoria's processing time. We have no control over that. So we're in the queue. The clock has started ticking. So once that order in council is passed in the provincial legislature, which could be in the fall, could be 6 months from now, if they're moving pretty quickly, might be 6 months from now, could be 9 months from now. Once that passes, then the Ministry of Finance still gives the properties another 3 months notice to prepare for collection. So if, for sake of argument, the order in council passed in October 2019, the notice would go out and the properties would have November, December, January as notice. They would start collecting MRDT February 1st, 2020. So although it seems like a lot of the work has been done, and it has, we have the majority support on the petition, we have a 5-year tourism strategy, we have a detailed year 1 tactical plan, and everyone's just ready to launch. We're kind of in this holding pattern until Victoria actually processes and that notice is given to the collectors of MRDT.
Excuse me. I'm just wondering, so they'll start collecting in February. Is there a period of time before the money comes back? Like, is it like every quarter or?
It's monthly.
Okay.
So it's monthly from the normal MRDT funds, and then there's this separate little pool that comes quarterly from properties that are on online accommodation platforms. So think Airbnb, VRBO. In your area, I did a little scan of Airbnb. You've got very limited number of properties on Airbnb. It's quite a small number, and I have no sense of whether any of them will make the threshold of $2,000 or $2,500. So those funds would come quarterly. They are identified separately, but they would still go to the eligible entity, which is Advantage Hope.
And then does it go to the government and then back to Advantage Hope?
Yeah, so the property, so if you're a motel and you are collecting, you collect PST and you've been notified, and February 1st you start collecting 2% MRDT, it all goes to Victoria, and then Victoria sends the MRDT back. less a teeny tiny administration fee, because why wouldn't they? It's like $20 a property or something that they take off for their administrative effort to send it back here.
So, I'm sorry for my ignorance, but if I collect MRDT for the month of February, when do I remit that to the government?
With your PST, which I believe is monthly.
It's monthly?
Yeah. I believe properties have to.
Just like you used to have
submit
before
their
with
PST.
business.
I didn't have PST, I had GST and that was quarterly.
Yeah, so
So-
GST is, yeah, it's a different animal.
Yeah.
PST, I believe, is monthly, and then it's not a very onerous administrative burden, because these properties are sending PST in anyways. It's just another piece of paper, the 2%. And then, yes, it all goes to Victoria. Victoria
And then
keeps the PST, and they send the MRDT back to Advantage Hope.
Thank you.
So I understand that there is some consideration of interim funding, and you know, I think it's worthy of consideration by you, because there is a certain amount of momentum and support now in the District of Hope, in the businesses, in the accommodation sector that we spoke to. There is an understanding that the majority has been achieved, and there are some expectations now of results. Folks have seen the tourism strategy, so it is a bit odd to be in this holding pattern. So some of the destinations that I've worked with around the province, they have provided some seed funding that allows some work to begin in advance. I mean, knowing that the majority is in place, and it's not really a whether, it's not an if MRDT is coming, it's we're into this the timeline of when MRDT is coming. There's that risk is not there anymore. The petition majority has been achieved. So some do provide seed funding. So as we go through the strategy, I thought it might be helpful for you if I highlighted some of the areas where you might want to activate or ask Advantage Hope, or Advantage Hope as the eligible entity and the one with the fiduciary responsibility. If they had the resources in place now, what kinds of things would they activate now instead of having to wait until February 2020 to get rolling? So the governance model then, we've talked a lot about this. So the eligible entity is Advantage Hope. The board of Advantage Hope has the legal and fiduciary responsibility to see that the funds are stewarded appropriately, just under the Societies Act of BC, as any other society in BC has. The board of directors has that fiduciary responsibility. But they're advised by tourism stakeholders, which I think is a very healthy thing. And it was certainly what I recommended in crafting this governance model, in talking with the accommodators early on about what they would find acceptable. You know, there was comfort and there was logic in having Advantage Hope be the eligible entity because they exist, they're in place. You didn't have to create a new society and new office space and new structure. That structure was there. So let's leverage that and make the most of it. But let's make sure that they're informed by the best possible tourism expertise. And so that was the genesis of the Tourism Advisory Committee. And that committee specifically makes recommendations to the board of Advantage Hope. So this is an extract. We actually wrote, as we should, terms of reference for the Tourism Advisory Committee. So members of the Tourism Advisory Committee have seen this terms of reference, they've signed on, and they understand their responsibility. So the purpose and mandate of the Tourism Advisory Committee is to provide strategic advice and recommendations to the Board of Advantage Hope, its executive director and staff. Specifically, the committee reviews and recommends the 5-year tourism strategy, the annual destination marketing strategy and tactics for Hope Cascades and Canyons that would identify the priority investments of MRDT and the anticipated measures of success. That's that year 1 tactical plan that is renewed every 12 months. The annual review of completed investments that were made with MRDT funds and the results achieved, including that annual report to Destination BC and the Ministry of Finance. And then more generally, communication and advocacy strategies to build awareness of the value of the tourism industry in Hope Cascades and Canyons. So that is the role of the Tourism Advisory Committee, and as I said, we've had our first meeting and they're all very keen, and lots of, yeah, it was wonderful for me to facilitate that first meeting of the Tourism Advisory Committee, because they looked at that year 1 tactical plan and we made some changes. I mean, they weren't huge changes, but, you know, folks, they are committed to this process, and they were saying, well, wouldn't it make sense if we did this, this, and this instead of that? And I was like, yeah, that's a really good point. Let's change it up. So they're, even in that first meeting, they were already fulfilling their role. The TAC membership itself has also been finely crafted, because we have, you know, we have quite a large geographic catchment. And so we wanted to make sure that we had that, the best advisory committees bring together a diversity of experience and perspectives. So we wanted the geographic diversity as well as the experiential diversity. In the work that I do around the province, I never recommend that these groups solely be populated by the accommodation sector, because it is too narrow a perspective. Visitors do not come to sleep in a bed. Let's get that fullness of experience at the table to talk about what will really motivate travel and what's going to move the dial for these visitors, especially now that we're in a day where the quality of the experience does so much of your marketing for you. So we have this mix. We have, of course, the MRDT collectors wanted a significant voice at the table. They said, signing this petition, I want to have some say in how this money is spent and make sure that this model is proved out and working. But we spread that across the catchment. So we have MRDT collectors, we have a Boston Bar rep, a Manning Park rep, a Bridal Falls rep, and some District of Hope reps. Because you, of course, have a concentration of motels here that is far denser than the rest of the area. We have 2 seats for arts, culture, and heritage, and we have folks there from Historic Yale and from Communities in Bloom. We have activity operators, Fraser River Rafting. Sorry, and pardon me if I forget, I'm looking in the back there.
Hope Mountain Center.
Thank you, Hope Mountain Center. Restaurants and retail have a seat. There's an at-large seat and a seat for Village Hope. So it's a good mix of experiences, visitor experiences, and a good geographic mix. So that's it for governance. Hopefully that sort of clarifies how these funds will be stewarded. And it is a very strong model, because you've got the on-the-ground tourism expertise recommending to the society, the board of the society that has the fiduciary responsibility, with oversight annually from Destination BC and the Ministry of Finance. So it hangs together quite tightly now. So I thought I'd also share with you just a very high flyby on what's in the 5-year tourism strategy and that first 12-month marketing plan. So you have a sense of how the monies are going to be spent and what the recommendations were that came from all the engagement with the tourism businesses that we spoke with. So we have some very clear objectives, and the intention is to measure these where we can. Some of them are a little tougher to measure, but as many as can be measured, we certainly will. So in the 5-year period, and it's actually, we thought it would be 2018 to 2022. It's actually, we need to change that 5-year window just a little bit, but same objectives. Increase the average length of stay of visitors. That speaks directly to this, like, this is not a place to stop for an hour or a night. This is a place to stay for many nights. And that in turn will increase the revenues because there's a direct correlation between length of stay and visitor spending. We want to grow the annual MRDT collected. And when we set these objectives, we didn't have the majority yet, so we put that, if it was improved, then that is a very clear tracking device. You know to the dollar what your MRDT is. And if you're investing that wisely, your MRDT is growing. An increase in shoulder season visitation. So as we focus our marketing efforts, really wanted to round out the shoulders. So looking at what can we do in autumn, what can we do in winter, how can we extend off those peak summer months. We want existing businesses servicing travelers to be increasingly successful. We want to see an increase in the number of employees. We want to see businesses lengthening their season and hours of operation. And then also see an increase in Net Promoter Score. That's a tool that's become very popular. Destination BC embraced it, and then a lot of destination marketing organizations are also using it now. It requires you to do a visitor intercept survey, and it asks the visitor how likely they are to favorably refer your destination to a friend. So it speaks to the quality of their experience, and it is considered one of the best long-term indicators of success, because if you have the experiential quality and that promoter, your promoters are much greater than your detractors, then you're going to succeed in the long term, because you'll have that favorable word of mouth. Those folks will come back, but they will also tell all their friends, and they will come as well. And then we wanted to see an increase in the value of leveraged resources, partnerships, and collaboration, because that is just the nature of destination marketing now. So where we could partner within the Hope, Cascades, and Canyons catchment, we certainly will, but also with our neighbors, with Fraser Valley, with going up the Gold Rush Trail. There's lots of opportunities. Highway 3 is kind of getting its act together to do some marketing of Highway 3 as a touring route. So lots of partnership opportunities that can be assessed. The vision was supported by everyone, and it was crafted to not only speak to visitors, but also to that broader economic development and resident attraction, business attraction mandate of Advantage Hope. So the Hope, Cascades, and Canyons region is known in our target markets for our incredible nature and recreation opportunities, as well as our rich history and culture. Having visited, a discerning number of visitors choose to make this region their home. The tourism economy is respected by all as an important contributor to economic vitality and community vibrancy. So there's some great pieces to that. There's what the visitor has, what it does for economic development as a whole, and how tourism is perceived by residents and the community itself, and how it contributes to the quality of life that residents have here. The mission then of Advantage Hope, when it puts its tourism hat on, working closely with the Tourism Advisory Committee, is to increase awareness of Hope, Cascades, and Canyons as an overnight and multi-night destination of choice in target markets, to support local businesses that service travelers with training and education related to the delivery of remarkable experiences. So that is very clearly about helping everyone up their game in terms of their service quality and the nature of experiences they're delivering. And also to establish relationships and partnerships within and beyond the communities in Hope, Cascades, and Canyons that are respectful and mutually beneficial, knowing that collaboration and those strong relationships will benefit all. Our target markets, if you look at their motivating activity, clearly we want to go after the outdoor recreation enthusiasts, but there's a great opportunity as well as sports tourism and tournaments. You've got a big tournament coming up here in March. Great shoulder season business, and you'll see occupancy and visitor spending spike. So more of that kind of sport tourism opportunity. The getaways from the city, like the folks in the lower mainland that don't even understand how close they are to this incredible mountain getaway. There's no toll bridges anymore. That used to be that sort of psychological barrier that they couldn't get past the toll bridge. Well, that's gone. And then still, of course, touring. You already see a lot of touring in private vehicles, motorcycle touring, but how can we pull more of that shoulder season business? A lot of Europeans are touring in April, May, September, October, like they're lengthening their season. So how do we try and keep in sync with what we need to be open to service them and make sure there are experiences available for them. And then passionate anglers, rafting enthusiasts, festival and event goers. They can all be targeted. Geographic markets, if you want to put it through the lens of where are these folks coming from, certainly we're still looking at close-in markets of the lower mainland, the Okanagan and Alberta, but from a touring perspective also Europe, Australia, New Zealand, and the Pacific Northwest. Pacific Northwest also catching some of those north to Alaska travelers that are coming through, but having them not just stop for an hour. Let's tell them what's here and have them build it into their itinerary so they stay longer and spend more. We identified some secondary target markets as well, but they were identified as something to monitor, we can pursue as resources become available. Travelers that are visiting family and friends, there's lots to tell them about. We can communicate that through our resident base and have a resident ambassador program, which we actually built into our year one tactical plan so that the folks that live here become our best promoters. Travelers that are going to and from Vancouver Island, this is the natural stopping point for a lot of them, so I want to speak to them as well about staying longer. And there were a number of other secondary target markets there. It's going to get a little bit smaller, so I apologize if you need to strain your eyes. There were a number of strategies, so I'll share with you the strategies and then just very quickly share the tactics for year one. So the first strategy was to build awareness. as a preferred overnight destination, and we would do that in a number of ways. Media relations is always a very cost-effective way. The media isn't just print media now, though. It's the influencers, the bloggers, it's all the folks that are writing and are followed digitally as opposed to just magazine and print editorial, although that can still be important too. And social media, outreach to tour operators, and other cooperative marketing programs. A lot of what will evolve will come from listening to the businesses themselves and having them say, this is working, can we do more of this? And there are opportunities to create those buy-in programs where everyone wins, and it's a cooperative marketing partnership. The sport tourism promotion is another important strategy. Partnerships in Scenic 7, Gold Rush Trail, Highway 3, excuse me, signature shoulder season events that motivate travel as well. Dark Skies was quite successful in October, but you also have Brigade Days in September. Like, there are a lot of shoulder season events and new events that could be conceived and offered in the shoulder season, but they need some nurturing and some funding and some resourcing to get them off the ground. When I was here in October trying to gather up some more signatures on the petition, I was standing. It was wonderful timing because I was in the lobby of a motel in downtown Hope, waiting to speak to the owner-manager, and this couple from the Lower Mainland were checking in for Dark Skies because Manning Park was full. That's the beauty of that kind of event. Sure, Manning Park will fill first, but if that can grow and grow and grow, and then the programming can also grow along with it so that there are themed events all the way up to Boston Bar. And that can be true of any shoulder season event. Dark Skies is just one example. The last strategies are to invest in the experiential quality offered to visitors. So this is working with the businesses themselves, the tourism providers themselves. Also working to build more Indigenous cultural experiences, so working with our neighboring First Nations communities. They're not stories that we can tell for them. Clearly, though, they are stories that they need to tell themselves. But we can support and guide and give research and guidance. We can connect them with Indigenous Tourism BC and just try and foster that process. Market research was also identified as very important. We need to get beyond just sort of feeling and thinking we know who's coming and what they want, and actually do some core market research to truly understand who's coming, who's not coming, what their perceptions are, what perceptions need to be changed. And then, of course, to do all of this, you need a racehorse. So we need someone to be the doer and the implementer. So there was the strategy to hire a tourism coordinator, a manager to lead implementation, and then to fund some minimal administrative costs. So here it gets really small. But we can pause as long as you want. The tactics, and I don't need to go through all of these, but I did want to give you a sense. So that first strategy we had was to build awareness of Hope, Cascades, and Canyons as a preferred overnight destination. So in that year one tactical plan, the strategy, or the tactics that we've laid out in support of that strategy are an interactive website that would showcase a range of experiences, social media campaigns that use keywords and geo-targeting advertising to promote to the audiences that are searching for the kinds of experiences that we're offering, editorial coverage, investing in content, so the images and the videography, and curating that content through social media feeds, site visits, fam tours, and collateral for Vancouver-based tour operators to try and draw that Lower Mainland market out here. And then also working with tourism stakeholders to understand if there's anything else that they would like to see funded, and other marketing strategies and tactics that we could do a cooperative buy-in that they'd be willing to also put some of their money on the table to participate. So if there was interim funding in advance of when MRDT were to flow, you could start the process of identifying that contractor for the website development. You could participate in the media fan tours that were ongoing through the summer and fall of 2019. You could be more aggressive in your social media promotions. You could coordinate the cooperative marketing initiatives, and every November 30th you've got an application into Destination BC for open pool, those leveraged dollar-for-dollar funds. So those are the kinds of things that would be resourced reimbursed if there was interim funding in place. The next strategy was to invest in the experiential quality offered to visitors. So working with businesses, online reputation management training, working directly with GoToHR for some of that frontline service education and training, educating locals themselves and making locals ambassadors on places to stay and things to do. I've been in so many communities, and we talk about this, and there's always this opportunity, like often the locals are they've been here so long, they don't realize all the great things to do, and they might even say, oh yeah, there's nothing to do here. So we really want to make sure that's not happening, right? And to do that, you can have local stays, you can have special rates, special offers, and really get the local folks out to enjoy and experience what you have, so that then they become your best promoters as well. And if they bump into a visitor on the street, or they're talking to their family and friends who are passing through, then they start to share all those reasons to stop and stay longer. There was a specific opportunity that had been identified in our workshops in the spring of 2017 to become a safe harbor community that's known to respect diversity. Destination BC has a Remarkables Experiences program, which has been very well received, and they worked one-on-one with business operators, with tourism operators, to help them craft new experiences and really understand how to engage, whether it's in TripAdvisor and responding to reviews and really playing in that digital world. And then some lobbying for government investments and infrastructure improvements to make sure that the experiences, like the Othello tunnels, or the infrastructure is there to support the visitor experience. So again, if interim funding was in place, you can begin work on local stays, you could start working with resident ambassadors, that Ask a Local program. Some communities have done that really successfully. So folks, residents, they volunteer, they're not paid for it, but they're out on the streets, or they're out at key festivals and events, and visitors love interacting with locals. Like that, they love to ask a local and get the skinny on what it's really like here and the best places to go. So you could kickstart that earlier than perhaps you otherwise would. And that training in online reputation management, you could begin summer of 2019, or perhaps even in advance of that, so that at least a few more businesses are ready for the busy season. Supporting the development of additional market-ready Indigenous cultural experiences, some of the tactics there. We have a provincial organization, they're very good at facilitating discussions and just creating bridges and opportunities. Indigenous Tourism BC, could ask them to come out and just bring us together. It is so much about relationship building, and often there's concern and a lack of understanding, and because of a lack of understanding of what is politically correct or not politically correct, tourism businesses tend to withdraw because they don't want to say the wrong thing. Yet there's an opportunity to work together with Indigenous communities and First Nations. So Indigenous Tourism BC can be that wonderful bridge to bring folks together and understand how to work together. There are also opportunities with place names and oral histories, and there's been some work done with Stolo Resources. And that is work that if there was interim funding in place, that could begin sooner rather than later to work on the Indigenous place names and histories of this area. And then we had also conceived a tactic to encourage Indigenous youth to become involved in tourism, perhaps through a bursary or a subsidized work program. Shoulder season events. We can support our existing events with marketing promotions. A lot of them are volunteer run and delivered, and so they're so busy just delivering their event. They don't often have the expertise to market their event. So more work could be done to support the marketing of existing events, and we could conceive and build support for a new expanded autumn or winter event as well. If there was some funding in place, you could maybe think about that. You could promote the 2019 autumn festivals and events, and try and get more economic impact from Brigade Days and Dark Skies and other events that are upcoming. And then also perhaps do some planning for new events that could become your signature shoulder season events. Primary market research was also identified as a strategy, and the tactics there for year one were to collect some visitor intercept data and start to utilize tools like Net Promoter Score and Explorer Quotient. If you're not doing the full visitor intercept survey, some communities and destinations are just scanning TripAdvisor ratings, but from a destination perspective, and just seeing the lay of the land, how your ratings are on TripAdvisor as a collection of experiences, so that work can be undertaken. Collecting postal codes has become a very, very powerful tool, and there are also some new tools with TELUS, and the data that all makes us all somewhat uncomfortable that they know about us just from our use of our phones. But again, so some very specific tactics in year one to get that research process started. And some interim funding would potentially allow for a common survey to be rolled out for, for the summer of 2019, which would be very helpful to inform the next year's marketing activities. Sport tourism, the tactics there are to support the volunteer groups in bid identification and preparation, because these events have to be supported by the local volunteer group. And they're volunteer groups, so they're always strapped for time and resources. And so if we can assist them in bid identification and preparation, then everyone can win. Once the tournament is secured, there's great opportunities to do the come early, stay longer. So if you're coming for the hockey event or whatever it is, come a day earlier, stay a day longer. These are all the things, and let's put together some special offers that are just for you and for the tournament participants. And that way you can really maximize yield. And then there are also some sport hosting programs that are run provincially where you can just put your infrastructure up on basically it's a website of sport hosting destinations. And so you need to be in there to be considered for some of the larger events. And of course you slot yourself in based on the infrastructure that you have and the regional or provincial events that you could serve. Some interim funding would allow maximum returns on those upcoming events. You've got the women's hockey tournament in March, you've got the Ride to Conquer Cancer in August. So there are some very real things out there, and why not try and maximize the benefit of those events that are coming here. Ongoing marketing partnerships, that's in the year one tactical plan as well. Continuing to work with Scenic 7 and the Gold Rush Trail, and then exploring some new partnerships as well as they get on their feet. Overseas tour operator relationships. So to get in even the RV touring in the European or the Australian markets, there are tour operators in those countries that are selling those RV trips. They're often outlining the itinerary for the traveler. So it's more than just getting them into the RV and then sending them on their way. They actually lay it out day by day for the traveler, so they need to understand that this is a place to stay for several nights, not just a pass-through or a one-night stop. But your best advocate there is Destination BC. You don't have to go to those markets. It's very expensive to go to those markets, but you do need to make sure that Destination BC is your best advocate. So you need to educate them on all the reasons, and then they can take those reasons forward to the tour operators in those markets. Also in this budget is the Hope Visitor Center, and continuing to operate that facility and continuing to service those visitors and offer the mobile visitor services at key locations like the Othello Tunnels and various festivals and events. And in the year one tactical plan, you'll recall the strategy was to hire contracted or staff tourism professional to implement and report back to the Tourism Advisory Committee, report back to the Board of Advantage Holders. That's it.
Very good. Thank you. This time, entertain any questions that council may have before we move on.
Well, I'll ask a question for the councilor that's not here, so thanks for coming very much. Appreciate it. Councilor Rickson had surgery, so he couldn't be here, but I know one of the questions that he was asking was what happens to the MRDT funds if the Greenwich Hope the eligibility cease to exist.
How would it, okay,
Before
I'm
the
trying to process that.
Before the 5-year term, you mean?
So they are a society under the BC Societies Act, and I don't think they wouldn't choose to cease to exist if they were still receiving MRDT funds. I mean, that decision to cease to exist as a society has to come from the board and the membership. And if, as the eligible entity, if perhaps they had no other economic development function, I don't know, they would still have a tourism function, and they would still receive those MRDT funds. So I guess I'm struggling to understand how that would ever actually happen.
I guess another way to ask the question maybe would be, could the eligible entity be changed in the course of the 5-year term?
You would, I've not seen it happen often, if ever, across the province in the last 20 years. The only way, and I would want to confirm this with Destination BC and the Ministry of Finance, but in my experience, the only way that would make sense is you would have to go back out and get the majority on the petition.
Right.
Because it is the accommodation sector, when they signed, they not only signed for the 2% MRDT, they signed for it to go to Advantage Home.
Oh, so it's safe to say it would cause a lot of confusion if something like that was to take place.
If you're changing anything in that base construct that they signed up for,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to go back to them and get them to sign a new petition and get that
Not a good
majority
idea.
again.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Councillor Stewart.
So, just to see if I can understand where you're coming from, your questioning is that Advantage Hope is on a contract with the district. That contract is coming up this year. So, that's why the question came up, what if, when it goes to RFP, that someone else bids on that contract?
For economic
So-
development services.
Right, so that's why I think the question came forward, is that it's not just a given that Advantage Hope is going to always be that, it is a contract. So anyway, my question is, how did you come up with the $80,000 number? Was it based on real sales? Is it a guesstimate?
It is an educated estimate. So we have the inventory of rooms, and then based on discussions with the accommodation sector, with the owners and managers themselves, we have a sense of their average year-round occupancy and their average rate. And then it's just simple math. You take the number of rooms, average rate, average occupancy times 2%. And do so somewhat conservatively, because in that year one budget, I would rather see more money coming in than less. Like, so have planned for less than have, I like good surprises. Not bad surprises. So we didn't want to have a marketing plan to spend $120,000 and then be surprised if it only came in at 80. I'd rather have a marketing plan to spend 80, and then if it comes in at say 90, or, but it is an estimate, just based on number of rooms, average daily rates, and average annual occupancy.
Okay, and one more thing, so when I read through this, I saw it as information about the MRDT. I didn't see it as a pitch for why we should give $40,000 out of the district's budget. So I was a little bit surprised that it went that direction.
It's just information for you. I knew it was on the table.
Yeah, it just caught me off guard,
Yeah.
I think, because it was the information I received. So, so just to clarify, the year one plan could in fact start when all application is approved, the money starts rolling in, that can be year one.
Which right now would be 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
right. And what we would go into is kind of this, a bit of a hiatus while we're waiting for the Ministry of Finance
Okay,
to
so-
process.
Actually, I don't think it would be much of a hiatus because a lot of what you're mentioning is happening and has happened for a long time in Hope. So like sports tourism, brigade days, events in the park, locals giving directions to people who stop by. That's all already taking place and has been for years.
So the events have been,
Yeah.
but really upping the game and promoting those events as reasons to come and stay multi-nights, putting them together in sort of professional marketing packages that are pushed out on social media. It's taking all of that to the next level. So the intention was that the MRDT funds are incremental. And so right now, if you have a tournament that's coming in, then you've got some volunteers kind of running around trying to maybe get word out to the tournament goers about things to do. This would be a much more focused, professional, okay, we've got 60 players coming in, let's poll our tourism stakeholders, what packages can we get? Let's do a hotel, let's do restaurant coupons, let's get a special event going on at Hope Mountain Center. Let's put it into a package, let's charge $350 for a 3-night stay, get it out there to them, be the fulfillment on that package. So it's, yes, the events have been happening. The promotion of them has been, I would say, somewhat ad hoc, and whether there was a volunteer that could manage to pull it together or not. So it's really taking it more to the level of a true professional destination marketing organization. The resident, I'm sure your residents are lovely, and if you bump into one, they'll talk to you and talk to a visitor. This is a very intentional program to educate residents and create more locals days offers so that residents get out and experience these things, to create a pool of volunteers that are the Ask a Local, that come out and they've got the t-shirts or whatever, the buttons that say Ask a Local. So again, it's taking all of the stuff that's somewhat ad hoc, and as and when people have the time to do it, and really giving it more structure and more professionalism and focus.
Thank you. I think our community does a really good job, the volunteers we have in promoting their events. So I just want to say that I think they've done a really wonderful job in our community.
Well, that's awesome, yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't want them to think we didn't think they did.
Oh, and this is not
ad
done
hoc level.
without them. This is in most communities I've worked with, these events and organizations, like, they welcome the extra marketing support for their event. They're just so pleased that they are being recognized for what they do, and that the economic benefit that they do bring to their local town, and to have the marketing organization working in step and alongside them and helping get word out about their fabulous event. In my experience, those volunteers are really happy to have that support.
Thank you.
Councillor Stewart, any interim funds towards this would promote existing budget with Advantage Hope. It's not new money. So they would take existing funds to put towards this TAC manager.
Do we always tell Advantage Hope how to spend the money we give them?
We do quite often.
Well, I don't know if it's.
I don't recall ever doing that.
The membership.
Yeah,
And
I don't
the
recall
plans are
that.
approved.
Yeah.
Suzanne, sorry, any other questions from council? Okay. You're good? All right, thank you very much for coming, Suzanne. Appreciate the information you provided us. At this time, I'll take a motion to close the meeting.